a lot of people that maybe the script or the guideline is, be this, be the label, show people you're, the professional and leave it at that. It becomes a mask. And what we all truly yearn for is that human connection.
You're listening to Inside Acting, a podcast dedicated to demystifying the inner and outer game of success in the entertainment industry. I'm Trevor Algott, and coming up in episode 255, I sit down for part one of my chat with eating psychology coach, wellness advocate, and spoken word poet, Tessie Tracy. In part one, we start the conversation about body image, especially as it pertains to performers and hopefuls in the entertainment industry. We chat about Tessie's journey as an athlete with a potentially fatal heart condition, how she used that condition to choose out of the comparison game, and how she fuses creativity and fitness and why that fusion creates both intimacy and opportunity in her professional life. It's pretty awesome stuff, and it's all coming up in episode 255. Stick around. Support for this episode of Inside Acting comes from Rehearsal Pro, the next version of Rehearsal, the essential app for actors that is, guess what? Surprise, surprise, now available in the iTunes App Store. So if you want to learn your lines, if you want to get off book for your auditions quickly and easily and explore your character and make stronger choices and book The Office and do a whole lot more, go to rehearsal.pro/IAP right now to learn all about the great new features in this newest version of Rehearsal for your iOS device and download it for yourself. That's rehearsal.pro/IAP. Hey everybody, Trev here. Welcome to episode 255. AJ is not joining us again this week, but he will hopefully be with us next week. So it's going to be a short and sweet intro and outro again this week, and we're going to focus the majority of the episode on my conversation with Tessie. But do have a couple quick shout-outs. Want to welcome our newest members, Cesar Herrera. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm horrible at rolling my R's, but Caesar, thank you for joining the family, man. And Paula Laboredas, I believe I'm saying that last name right. I'm awful with names, guys, so I really, really apologize if I'm butchering your names. But Caesar and Paula, welcome, guys. And also, if you guys don't know, we have finally set up more than one option for one-off donations. I totally understand that the recurring monthly thing is not something that everybody wants to commit to. So if you'd like to chip into the podcast with just a one-time donation of anything from a couple of pennies all the way up to even a couple $100, you can do that now. You can do that through PayPal, Venmo, or Square. Square has a service called cash.me that we've set up. So all of those options are available on our website at insideacting.net/contribute. And two of the most recent one-off contributions have come from Fern Lim and Grace Gordon. You guys are amazing. Not only are they longtime listeners and supporters of the podcast, Fern, as you guys may know, designed our logo, but also they chipped in with some very generous donations, really went above and beyond in supporting the podcast from a very tangible financial standpoint. So you guys, thank you. You make this thing happen. It is the most wonderful feeling in the world as a producer of a weekly podcast to have the support coming in that allows us to not only justify the many, many, many dozens of man hours that go into this thing every week and month, but also to be able to budget and start thinking ahead to the future about equipment we can buy and other guests that we can bring on and how we can expand the team and really make this something that is rewarding to people, not just on a service-based level, but, we got to put food on the table. So, thank you guys for making this possible, our newest members and our one-off donations. And if you're listening to this and you would like to contribute as well, pay it forward, you can go to insideacting.net/contribute to do that right now, and make sure you hold on to your receipt, because you can write that contribution off as a tax deductible thing. You can count it as research and development, or you can write it off nonetheless, because it's, for your acting career. So again, thank you guys very, very much. And it means the world to us. Really, 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 really appreciate it. All right, enough of that. Let's jump into my chat with Tessie. We've got a lot of great questions, guys. We've got like 8 or 10 questions, even a voicemail or two to respond to. So I'm really looking forward to having AJ back on the show so we can respond to those and bounce ideas off each other and whatnot and air our thoughts. But short of that, here is part 1 of my chat with Tessie. Tessie's a good friend of mine, and I've known her for a while, and she's one of the most creative and passionate and athletic people I know. And she approaches this whole health and fitness thing from a very emotionally holistic vantage point or viewpoint or approach, or whatever the word I'm looking for is. And it's really refreshing and powerful. And not in this part, but in parts 2 and 3, which are coming up over the next few episodes, we really dig deep into that stuff. And I think if you guys have ever suffered from body image issues of any kind, if you've ever looked in the mirror and thought to yourself, man, I wish, fill in the blank, about me was different. Or if you sat at a table in front of a meal and you've thought, man, I kind of feel, fill in the blank, about this food that I'm about to either put in my body or choose not to put in my body. This interview series is for you if you've ever felt that way about anything. And I actually share a few sort of intimate nuggets about, that sounded dirty, but a few intimate pieces of information about my own body and food issues, because I'll go ahead and say it, I have issues around that stuff too. So I hope this is valuable for you guys. Hope you enjoy it. Enjoy part 1, and I'll catch you on the other side. Today, I'm joined by a friend and former professional dancer, actor, and nationally ranked collegiate cheerleader, Tessie Tracy. She's also a CrossFit Games regional competitor, and her journey has led her to work as a certified personal trainer and level 2 CrossFit coach. She's trained and coached a number of celebrities, including Max Greenfield, Bob Harper, Tracy Edmonds, Babyface, David Blaine, and best-selling author Lewis Howes, among many others. Now, as a certified eating psychology and mind-body nutrition coach, Tessie's full-time mission is supporting people to create sustainable, healthy life habits around food, exercise, body image, and more. She was recently featured on a panel through SAG-AFTRA on how to apply transferable skills as a performer to other professional industries, and Tessie is also a global ambassador for the body image movement, inspiring every person to love the skin they're in. Tessie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yes, I'm excited to be here, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. I mean, we've known each other for a little while now, and what wasn't mentioned in the intro here is that you're also a spoken word poet.
Yes, I am. And I might have a little treat for us at the end of the podcast.
Awesome. I can't wait. I love your poetry. You have a book on Amazon called 10 Poems on Purpose that I've purchased and read several times over. I love your work. Also, what I want to mention before we move on into the interview is that you've also created a line of nutrition bars called Tap That's.
Yes, I have. They're a gluten-free, vegan, unbaked protein bar. And I kind of made them as how do we have a protein bar made with whole ingredients that doesn't have a lot of preservatives. And they're quite tasty. They kind of taste like almond Christmas cookie dough, but healthy.
I can second that. They're really, really good. You've shared a few of them with me in the past, and man, they're the kind of thing that when you think about it, you instantly start craving it. You're like, I need something, and nothing else will satisfy the urge except those Tap That bars. So excited to talk to you. Obviously, there's a lot of areas of focus to explore with what you do. But I want to start at the beginning and talk about sort of how you got, onto this track, how this journey became your journey, and, maybe why you didn't end up doing, I don't know, like real estate or something like that. So where were you born, and then what got you to LA and interested in the work you do?
Yeah. So I was born in a small town. It's called Glenwood Springs, Colorado. So it's like Western Slope, small mountain town. I grew up I started gymnastics when I was 4. So my athletic career literally started at that age, and went on to just really love sports. And throughout high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. So I played tennis, volleyball, and cheerleading. And sometimes I would literally leave volleyball practice early to go to cheerleading. And I just absolutely loved it. To me, it was just like the epitome of, my passion. And then, was a cheerleader in college. And then, of course, after college, I actually graduated with a degree in Spanish business and a degree in cultural studies. And then I told my parents that I wanted to pursue hip hop dancing and fitness modeling in Los Angeles.
Oh my God, the rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper.
Yeah, which they amazingly were supportive of. And I came out to Los Angeles about 5-6 years ago with packing up my Jeep, not knowing if I was going to stay 3 months or 3 years. And, that was when a lot of my journey of what I'm doing now began. So, but when in Colorado, I was still like a cheerleading coach, but I didn't become a personal trainer or get interested in that side of things until I got to Los Angeles. I actually became a personal trainer as my thrival job. And then I really started to realize that was my passion, supporting people, and that not everyone had the, 3-sport, know what to do for fitness and what to eat growing up that I had. So that's kind of, for the most part, brought me to where I am now.
That reminds me of something that Derek Sivers wrote in his book, Everything You Want. He said, I remember he tells a story in that book about somebody coming up to him at one point in his life and saying, God, how do you do what you do? Like, what you do is so incredible. And he had this realization that what was obvious to him was absolutely fantastic and mysterious and fascinating and intriguing to somebody else. And he had that same experience when he was younger, looking at somebody else and saying, how do they do that? So I feel you on the athletic thing, where it's it's obvious to you. And yet there are so many people who look up to you and what you do, and they just go, teach me thine ways,
Yeah. And I think that's what makes all of us as humans so special is it's totally normal and okay because I'm also the type of person where I want to be good at everything, but just to realize that not everything comes naturally to me. And that's the beauty of being able to, share with one another. And, you teach me what you're really good at, and I really need to take baby steps. And then another area I can help you the same. So,
yeah. Yeah. I love that. Now you obviously have spent a huge chunk of your life, actively in athletics, pushing your body to the next level constantly, but you've got a rare congenital heart defect called Epstein's anomaly. Is that right?
Yes.
And
that is.
And that essentially makes high intensity exercise kind of off limits. So I'm trying to kind of put together the piece of you that was hip hop dancing and cheerleading and doing, all these activities, CrossFit and stuff, and this condition which basically forbids you from getting your heart rate too high.
It's really interesting because the Ebstein's anomaly, basically one of my heart valves, my tricuspid valve, is misplaced. So one of my valves is just kind of sideways. I literally have a large heart. But what happens is basically my heart doesn't pump blood super efficiently. And it's a condition that, less than like 3% of the population have. And a lot of people can never exercise at a high intensity. So I remember when I was little and I was doing gymnastics, my pediatric cardiologist, he said to me, he was like, "You are my poster child for this condition." And he was like, actually, the fact that you started an activity as, intense as gymnastics from a young age is actually what helped my heart adjust to the condition. So while in fact the high intensity exercise has always been a challenge for me, and I remember like in 8th grade, I tried track and we had this run around like the middle school. It was some loop that was like 2 miles. I felt so far behind everybody that I got lost and just started like bawling, because it specifically is with running where I just crap out and like can't breathe. So I've had I had one experience in college where a sister condition is called Wolff-Parkinson's White, or WPW, which is where you have extra electrical pathways. And what happens when you have WPW is you can jump into rapid heart rate. So I would have those symptoms sometimes when I was in the middle of a cheerleading routine. And one time after practice, my heart rate had gone up, and usually it went away within an hour. It was just this uncomfortable kind of fluttery feeling, and it lasted all night. And then the next day, actually at weightlifting practice, they had to call the EMTs, and they came and gave me what's called adenosine, which is they gave me through an IV, and it literally resets your heart.
Oh my God.
I died for a second and then came back to life.
Jeez. It reminds me a little bit of a swimmer that I follow. Her name is Dana Vollmer, and she has something called long QT syndrome. The letters QT, and it's also a cardiac electrical disorder. And I remember reading an interview with her where she said that oftentimes during some of the more intense practices her coach had planned for her, they'd have a guy, like an EMT on deck waiting with a defibrillator, because she literally could go into heart failure at any moment if she pushed herself too hard. So you've been living with that fear more or less as well.
Yeah. And I've had 3 procedures where the extra electrical pathways, they either burned them or froze them. And since my last procedure, which was now about 10 years ago, I haven't had that episode where I'll jump into rapid heart rate, but I can definitely still feel when I need to back off or take it easy. But to, at the same time, as crazy as it is, it's also that gift where I literally realize how lucky I am to be able to exercise. And I actually enjoy exercise. So it's kind of also that I know that exercising is what's going to keep my heart healthy.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are a lot of people listening, myself included, that I can imagine if I had, an issue like that I had to be cognizant of, I could very easily spiral into a sort of hopeless place. I could see it as I've come into the world with the system rigged against me already. Have you ever had those thoughts? And if you have, how have you sort of short-circuited them and gotten back to a place of empowerment?
Sometimes I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But when I was little and doing these sports, even when I went to a private school until 7th grade. So when I got into 8th grade, I started doing public school sports. And I remember, I'm 13 at the time. And I remember my mom saying Tess, we can't tell your coaches about your condition or they might not let you participate. And so my condition was actually a secret. And I never talked about it really to anyone. And And in a sense, I actually think that was a good thing, because I kind of just knew, like, yeah, I like, have things that happen in my body that I feel, and I can't really tell my coach about it. But at the same time, it still helped me to stay strong and know that I was just going to have to like try harder. And when I got into college, I did, my coaches were aware. So I have had moments where I've spiraled into it becoming an excuse, like, oh, well, I won't be able to make the nationals mat for cheerleading because I can't run a mile in less than 8 minutes. Like, we had tests we had to do to qualify to be on the competition mat. And a lot of the cardio like tests, I knew I wouldn't qualify for. So although it's been a challenge where I've had this mindset of like, oh, I have a limit, I think the more what I do when I get to that point, what helps me is to still like remind myself that I'm always trying my hardest. And fitness in itself, that I know we can probably all relate, it's a mental battle for anyone to see like, okay, well, if I go to that point of discomfort and really push myself, like I could be scared of that, or I could try it and be surprised that I can do it. And that's happened to me, a number of times, to where I just have to step into knowing what I can do, knowing that I'm trying my hardest. It doesn't matter what anyone else can do. I just kind of compare it to myself. So it helps.
That's a lesson that I think a lot of us need to learn over and over and over, is that the comparison game is always a losing battle. Like, it's the moment that you start comparing yourself to other people, there's always going to be somebody out there who's got it better, who's got more money, who's better looking, who has a better, whatever it is. Like, there's always a way to find yourself at a disadvantage. So choosing not to play that game, I think, is kind of one of the most evolved things we can do.
Yeah. And I think that comes into play for sure, like in, the entertainment industry, as a performer or as someone who's, auditioning, and there could be a million reasons why you don't get the part. And it's easy to jump into like, oh, well, that, if you're a guy, like, oh, that guy over there got it because he has more cut than me, or, oh, that girl got it because, she has blue eyes. And it's like, there's a temptation to go into blaming ourselves for something we can't control. So yeah, it's important to just stay grounded in, okay, I can do what I can control, and everything else I'm practicing being unattached to.
Yeah. It's me against me, not me against, this other person that I've made up a bunch of stories about as to why they're superior. This is a great jumping off point too, because you mentioned, acting and that comparison game. And I know you're also a very creative person. I mentioned earlier that you're a spoken word poet. You've got a book available on Amazon. You've done spoken word poetry, performance. I love your work. A lot of your work is available, to view on YouTube and Instagram. And I think I'm probably speaking for more than just a few people when I say that, for me, balancing the sort of inner athlete and the inner artist feels like a sort of they're two things that feel very much at odds inside my brain and heart. And I know that we've had conversations in the past where it felt a little bit like you were experiencing the same thing. You're like, do I do the art stuff and go full bore into that, or I do the wellness, fitness stuff and go full bore into that, or is there a way to balance the two? And I think you found a really great balance between the two. But what has that journey been like? That sort of push and pull, and how does it continue to play out in your work as you learn more about yourself and what resonates with people?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, there was a year where I think I changed my website completely to Tessie, the spoken word artist, and was, really going to go for being a performer and back on stage. And then I was like, no, I need to be a wellness professional. And it was, a mentor said to me once, he was like, you have both. And it's about learning to, present your skills and your value as diversified and not as distracted. So meaning to come across that I am capable of doing both 100%. But the the fusion, although they're coming together now, it was not always like that. So I think one thing that when I feel, I was actually thinking about this when you were talking, like the fusion of art and fitness. And for me, that was definitely dance, because dance was something, as like a hip hop dancer and a performer, was something where it felt more like art that just happened to be fitness as well. But as far as, being a fitness professional, it has always felt like, oh, it has to be one or the other. And, people, again, that knew me growing up, and I loved school and I loved learning, and, at times wanted to go to med school and be a doctor or a psychiatrist. And then they actually kind of were open to be like, well, why are you pursuing acting and modeling? Like, you should do something that you can use your brain. And, I listened to that for a while. And, I embodied that for a while. That was like, oh yeah, if I'm like doing hip hop dancing and acting, then I have to like also be going to school, or like that in itself is not enough. So I think that's something that even in one of your other episodes, how it was Wells Fargo that had made the commercials that insinuated that, acting was, you couldn't make a living doing it, or it wasn't considered like a successful career potentially. But how I've found the fusion is because they are both part of me. Like this, I've done spoken word pieces that have to do with body image, and self-love and acceptance. And to me, that's definitely the fusion of both worlds. So I think it's a continual development and practice. But that's just like one example of kind of how it feels less like a balancing act and more like a cohesive, singular circle.
Yeah, I was looking at your website before we started speaking today, and I saw that it's mostly seems to be centered around the work you do as an eating psychology coach and, the wellness consultancy and things of that nature. But then there's, a few mentions, obviously, and there's obviously a few blog posts you've written that are very much on the spoken word poetry train. And what I sort of caught myself experiencing was like, this new level of sort of an intimate connection with this person, because I was seeing somebody that I was sort of unconsciously categorizing in my head as a professional professional fill in the blank, put a label on it, because that's what we all want to do in the world, is just put labels on the people around us. But then when I saw the creative poetry stuff, I immediately was like, oh, this is a human being with needs to express themselves the same way everybody else was. And all of a sudden I felt even more connected to you. I felt like we transcended that labeling conversation in my head. And I wonder if that dialogue is new. Like it feels very 2016. Like 10 years ago, I think the sort of prevalent advice would be, don't confuse people. You need to be one thing and keep the rest of your life to yourself. And now it's much more like, no, put the wholeness of your being out there, because that is what makes, that's where relationships are built on, and all businesses are essentially relationships at the end of the day. So, have you? Is that? I guess the question I'm asking is that a thought process that has entered into your head? Has it been an intentional melding of art and fitness that has resulted in additional clients and richer relationships in that sense?
Yeah, it has. And thank you for saying that was like your experience from, seeing the different things on my website, because I think like a lot of people that maybe the script or the guideline is, be this, be the label, show people you're, the professional, and leave it at that. It becomes a mask. And what we all truly yearn for is that human connection. I follow an online marketing entrepreneur Ryan Lee, and every email that he sends out to his list, and he says this is what he's doing because it is that, like, science of human connection and what we actually want, is he talks about his kids. He talks about loving to go to coffee shops to do his work. And he points out, he's like, hey, this is like, I have 4 kids. This is who I am as a person. Like, my mask is off. He's like, I'm this professional, and I consider, my list, my friends, and I'm actually being vulnerable and opening up. And with me putting like my spoken word on my website, along with, hey, you can, work with me as if you have eating and food challenges, it's definitely, a vulnerable step. But I relate to you when, when I see others and I have that, it's called like relational intimacy, or experiential intimacy, where you can connect with someone and say like, oh, me too. Or like, oh, I think that's so cool. It creates a level of intimacy and connection beyond like, oh, like that's, just another like health and fitness expert, and they're really knowledgeable, but it seemed like I don't know, like you don't get to know them as a person. So yeah.
It's almost like what sets them apart from every other, food or dietitian or nutrition expert. Because when you think about it, what we eat, our relationship with food is probably the most intimate relationship we have with anything ever. I mean, you're talking about the things that you put in your mouth and chew and swallow. And there's obviously a lot of emotion that comes with that, whether it's positive or negative. And I guess by positive and negative, I mean, emotions that will support you in becoming lighter and freer and feeling more able to express yourself, or negative, meaning, things that are going to hinder you or cause you to have negative feelings about your body or your choices and things like that. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed part 1 of my chat with Tessie Tracy. Tessie, like I mentioned, is a good friend, and we're actually in the same mastermind group, so I have the opportunity to see her every week or two and really connect with her on a deep level. So I've had the chance to witness her journey and her transformation and her progress over the past few years, and it's just been awesome, man. She's the epitome of the power that is available to us in vulnerability. So if you would like to connect with her online, I highly invite you, encourage you to do so. All the links to her social media and website and all that is on our website in the show notes. So check her out. As far as picks of the week go, I'm going to push this off again one more time until next episode when AJ is with us again. So sit tight. I've actually got like 3 or 4 weeks worth of picks of the week already sort of planned out. Many of them I've sent out on social media and stuff like that. So excited to share those with you on the episode. And also you can just find me on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and I share them there as well. So that is it for episode 255. Today's episode is produced and co-hosted by me, Trevor Halgad. Chen Levin is our production coordinator. Gidala Gubrek is our marketing and web director, and Deborah Smith is our community manager. I went ahead and made this whole thing this week, so editing, mixing, producing, all that stuff is done by me, and Fern Lim, our very generous supporter, designed our logo. You can find out more about Fern's work, by the way, at thecontagiousfern.com. She did not ask us to say that. I just think she does great work, and I'm happy to spread the word. You can sign up for our weekly email dispatch and listen to all of our episodes over at our website, insideacting.net. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. And if you do nothing else, a nice review on iTunes goes a really long way for us. It's a lot like kind of putting a tip in our tip jar. It helps other people discover the show and trust that what they're getting themselves into is going to be worth their time. So if you enjoy the show and you'd like others to know about it, a review on iTunes is really a really great way to support the show as well. Big thanks to our sponsors, Rehearsal Pro and VO2GoGo.com. VO2GoGo, by the way, if you guys haven't heard, is the award-winning voiceover training system and winner of Backstage's Reader's Choice Award for Best Voiceover Training 4 years in a row. These are the same classes that I teach each month in Hollywood. You can also take web classes and things like that. And if you want to just kind of dip your toes in and learn a little bit more about it, you can visit votogogo.com/start and get access to a completely free Getting Started in VoiceOver online class that'll help you add voiceover to your acting portfolio. It will walk you through everything you need to know from zero to hero over the course of 10 modules. So that's gogo.com/start. And big thanks to you guys, our listeners. If you love Inside Acting and you want to maximize its value in your life and career and support the continued production of the podcast, you can sign up as a monthly member and get cool perks. You get access to our member community message board. You get an invite to exclusive member meetups like our headshot event that just happened a week ago. Some fun freebies, special bonus content, and more. It's $7 a month. You can visit InsideActing.net and click on the membership tab to do that. Or, if you'd like, you can forego the monthly recurring thing and just make a one-time, no strings attached, tax-deductible donation. Just visit InsideActing.net/contribute to do that. So that does it for this episode 255. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, you can have it all.